Chairman, thank you. Ambassador, thank you for being here and for your testimony. First of all, I would tell you that I've been in Kansas, and I certainly pay attention to my phone calls and mail. Not every foreign issue generates the attention that this one has generated at home among Kansans. And I think a couple of things perhaps are involved in that. There's concern, and I would like to have you tell me how I answer the question of those who believe that the Kurds were our allies and that what has transpired has demonstrated the fecklessness of the United States in staying close to their allies, supportive of their allies. And secondly, there's been an interest in not only the Kurds but Christians, and perhaps you can tell me how what has transpired has consequences to Christians in the region. And then if we have more time, I have a couple other questions.
We recognize that this was a big blow to our SDF allies, some of whom are Kurds, some of whom are Arab, but certainly the core leadership is the YPG and the PYD, which are, again, these PKK offshoots. And it was a blow to them. If we're not careful, it will be a blow to the Kurdish population, regardless of who they support, if they're not treated correctly. In our agreement with Turkey that we signed, not signed, but we agreed to on the 17th, we ensured that there was good language in there on the protection of civilians and specifically ethnic minorities and religious minorities. There are some Christian groups in the Northeast. They've generally been relatively well taken care of by the SDF, YPG Kurds, and they're generally well taken care of. If there's one group of people that the Assad regime is fairly careful with, it's the Christian minority, because by and large they tend to support him as an alternative to radical Sunni terrorists and Islamic extremists. But we're watching that very closely. The President just approved a $50 million package for our ethnic and religious minorities in the Northeast of stabilization funding, and we're looking for ways to ensure that that money is delivered.
So the support for Kurds and others is demonstrated by the agreement with Turkey, and then it relies upon Turkey abiding by that agreement.
Right, but as Ronald Reagan once said, trust but verify. That is, trust but threaten. We are ready. The agreement with the Turks said that we would lift the sanctions we imposed under the executive order 14 October Syria sanctions. We lifted the specific sanctions on 3 ministers and 2 ministries. We did not annul or pull back the executive order. It is still there. It is very broad. It is very powerful, and it is an incentive for people to adhere to their agreements.
I also think it's true that many of my Kansans, many of my constituents also are tired of wars in the Middle East, tired of the wars generally, and concerned when our involvement lasts a long period of time. I'm still trying to determine what the goal is in Syria, this administration or the U.S. policy. I think the original goal was the destruction of the caliphate, but I think other things have now been said, such as enduring defeat of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and their affiliates in Syria, the reduction and expulsion of Iranian malign influence, resolution of the Syrian civil war on terms favorable to the United States. That's different than what I think our original goal of destroying the caliphate was. What is our goal in Syria today?
Senator, that's a very important question, and even after 50 years of dealing with the question of American military force around the world, I've had to learn new things and rethink this in the past few days. As a nation, we have national security and other national interest supporting objectives around the world. We also have many different ways to pursue them. you can have goals in international relations that you're not willing to use military force for. And you have goals like protecting South Korea you are willing to use military force for. You have goals that you use diplomatic pressure or diplomatic incentives for. That's how we were dealing with the Turks. You have goals that you use military force for. That's what we were doing with our troops in northeast Syria against ISIS. The complication comes for this body of people who deal with this all of the time, for us who, in my case, have dealt with it my whole life, and for our soldiers when, particularly in internal conflicts, not the 1991 Gulf War where you had a one-sentence order, clear Iraq out of Kuwait, but you're dealing with various groups. The rules of engagement an American soldier had to carry. General Tony Thomas discussed this on Face the Nation just Sunday, how many different forces were within moderate range of him. And while he didn't get into a lot of detail, I know you had a different set of rules of engagement for each one of them, whether you could attack them only if they shot at you. That's the problem with this. Those are legitimate goals of national policy, all three of them. Only one of them were being pursued by military force in Syria. That was the defeat of ISIS, sir.
So the three goals that I indicated to you that I believe I've heard are our goals. And the question, and your point is some of those goals, one of them involves potential military action.
Exactly, Senator.
Thank you.